Scouting deer on public land in the state of Wisconsin. That's right, folks. Scouting for big buck beds on public land in the state of Wisconsin today. And I have a surprise for you. All the way from Minnesota, my friend Garrett Prawl, Do-It-Yourself Sports in the flesh. There he is, folks.
Hello.
Woohoo! What's up, man? So that's right, folks. Here's your surprise. Garrett Prawl from Do-It-Yourself Sportsman and I are doing some scouting on public land today in the state of Wisconsin. I'm very excited. You're actually from Wisconsin originally, aren't you?
Originally, yeah.
Yeah, now you're in Minnesota. So, but I have a surprise for you as well as the viewers. Now that you're surprised that I'm scouting with Garrett today, I got a few things for you, Garrett. First and foremost, you got your, woohoo, the Map Reading Challenge hat. Woohoo!
It's official now.
It's official. Now, my friends over at the Allen Company sent me a bunch of gear this year, namely the shocker gear that they have. And this is a shotgun case, as you can see, and I already had one. And they sent me two more because I asked them to send me two of everything so I could give them to my fans. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to give one of these to my fans, but I thought, who else could I give this to? And I want to give it to you, man.
Awesome, appreciate it.
Yeah, so enjoy that. Now, this man's engaged. He's getting married in a few months. So I got a few things from my friends at the King Camp that I wanted to give you as well. I mean, when you get married, you're going to go camping and stuff. This is a portable little table. All right, so this is for you. You're gonna run out of hand, so we'll carry it over to your truck in a minute. This is a slightly larger portable table in case you could set up to eat on this one. You could set the food on that one. So I'll just set this back in. Yeah, you're gonna probably go to like the lake, and they had the little beach areas at the lake. So we got a set of matching beach chairs for you guys. From the King Camp. Anyway, we're gonna go put this in your truck and then go scout some deer on public land in the state of Wisconsin.
Sounds great.
Woohoo!
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Two quick things before we get into the woods. You did hear me correctly. I am giving away some shocker gear stuff from the Allen Company, including a gun case and run and gun pack. If you want to get in on that, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Click the bell icon so you're notified when I give an upload, and that way you'll find out how you can get in and win the stuff. So the second thing is I want to give you my strategy going into this scout trip on how I'm going to be as efficient as I possibly can to get on the deer sign. All right, so this is a map reading challenge. And if you're not familiar with my map reading challenge, I have a whole separate map reading challenge YouTube channel. Basically what it is a challenge hunt that I established. You look at aerial photos and topographic maps, pick out the best spots, and then you go and look at that. And then you come back in the fall to hunt it. So you basically do one or two scouts. Normally we do one scout, but this year for the Wisconsin Map Reading Challenge, we're doing a scout in March just to see what the deer trails look like before the foliage comes in. And then we're gonna scout it in the summertime to compare notes, and then we're gonna hunt it for 2.5 days in the fall. We're gonna try to put ourselves on some bucks in just two little brief scouts and 2.5 days of hunting. So it's gonna be me, Garrett, and Shane from Calling All Turkeys. I invited those guys to do a map reading challenge with me. We're pumped up and excited to do that. I said, Garrett, where do you wanna do it? He named this area in Wisconsin. There's so many miles of public land. I started looking at the map, and when I talked to him the next day, turns out he was like 40 miles away from where I was looking. So I thought, okay, let me just pick an area closer to where he's at so that we're not so far away from each other. And being that there's like hundreds of thousands of acres, I just basically drew a 4 square mile box on the map and focus on this. Some problems that guys have is they see 20, 30, 40,000 acres of public land and they don't know where to start. Don't worry about that. Just pick one secluded area, draw a box around it and say, okay, in this box, where's the best spots to go hunting? So being that it's a 2.5 day hunt, I broke the whole thing. This is, again, two miles this way, 2 miles this way. So we got 4 square miles here, and I broke it in half. So I was gonna focus on the lower half as one circuit for the scout and the upper half as a separate circuit. And that way I can, if I'm down here hunting, and I mess it all up, I can go up here the following day to an area where I wasn't messing with those deer at all. So you want to spread yourself out. Now when I looked at the lower half, there was a loop right in here that had the best topography to work with and that I wanted to look at. So I set out, there was a place I could park here, and I was going to park there and do this loop. Now on the top section, I had a lot of good points went straight across it. So I basically created another loop that looked like this. It's a longer scout loop and I could park over here. So I broke this scout trip up into two halves, a shorter half, a shorter scout, and then a longer scout. That's what I'm about to do. You're gonna follow me. I'm gonna do this one first. And so let's get in the woods. Let's go see what happens. I almost didn't make it back here, but here's a tip for you. I've got 2 sets of everything for this trip today. Got 2 backpacks. I got 2 sets of boots. This is the smaller of the 2 backpacks. I don't have any swampy areas that I'm going through on this spot, so I didn't bring the hip waders, but I have hip waders for the other spot that I'm going to because there's a stream and a swamp. Just found my first rub, although it's along the access road getting back in, so I wouldn't hunt near that because that's too obvious. Everyone's gonna see that. But it's good to see that it's in the area. And what I actually like to do is look at the topography, how the deer are gonna travel through here. And there's a ridge up to my right, which I'm headed to. And there's a point that comes down. So I think the buck probably came right down the point right here, right over to where that rub is. So I'm actually, right up here is where I was planning to cut up in to go over to that ridge. Bang, baby. So I just got to that, where I just pointed out to you where I was planning to go. And look, there's a beat trail right here and another one right here, travel corridor heading right up to that ridge. There's the other beat trail going up in. But here's another thing to watch for. There's a lot of marked trees right here, so they could log it. Here's deer tracks right here. Bang, I nailed it. Reading the topography, when you get good at it. Today's the first day I've ever been in the state of Wisconsin, coming in blind and put myself right on deer. And it's exciting when you get into the map reading. But here's the marked trees. So you gotta watch that, because I'm scouting right now in the month of March. By the time I come back here in October, this whole area could be completely different. It's a little bit of a glare, but so there's the trail I walked in on, and you can just see there's a bit of a draw going up the hill to the top. You can see my waypoints that I've marked. That's where I'm headed. And right here is another buck rub. It's a smaller rub, but it's still a rub nonetheless. So that's good to see. It's good to see buck sign in the area, and I'm excited. This is awesome. Now, as far as picking out a tree, there's some trees in here that I could get a climber in, and I'm standing on the main trail. So typically what I do is I look about 15 to 20 yards off the side, and I do see some trees that I could get stands in right over here. But you also have to take note of all these little saplings that we have, because in the fall, they're all gonna have leaves on them. So it's gonna be hard to get a shot to where I'm standing from like that tree over there. So keep that in mind too. You gotta pay attention to the saplings, and if you're gonna have shooting lanes. I just took a couple steps toward that tree I just showed, and there is deer poop right there. Another buck rub right here. And another thing what I'll point out is I had that main trail that goes up the ridge, but they're also circling around the base of the ridge. So this creates a intersection, if you will, and makes this, there's a whole bunch more deer poop right here, and here, and here. So this is definitely a high traffic area. I am gonna mark this tree as a waypoint, and this is exciting. This is a nice spot. This is a nice spot, and check out this, a really nice buck rub coming up over here. Let's go take a look at it. Wow, deer scat everywhere, deer tracks everywhere, turkey tracks. Here's more deer scat, more deer scat. Look at that nice rub right there. More deer scat right there. When I'm studying a rub, I look at how high up the tine marks are on the tree. That gives you an idea of tine length. This buck had some good tine length. looking at where the main rub area is and where the nicks are up on the tree. Oh, I love it, I love it. And the one other really good thing about this spot is it's loaded with white oaks. White oaks are definitely a preferred species for the deer. It's a sweeter acorn than the red oaks. Man, there's deer scat everywhere here. This is a nice spot right here. More rubs as I go up the ridge. All right, I've been following this trail and I just came to a major intersection, the other trail going this way. And I always like to stop at these major intersections and look, can I get in a tree? Can I get in a climber tree about 15 yards out? So I'm looking around. There's a few options. Nothing that's really exciting me right now because a lot of these trees are a little thinner from logging, but I could probably get in that one tree right there, and whether it's a hang-on or a climber, I could probably get in either. I'm gonna go walk over there and mark that spot. What I like to do is walk to the base of the tree with my handheld GPS and put in a waypoint. So there's my one waypoint that I wanted to investigate, but you could see my blue dot is where I'm standing, and that's where that intersection is that I just pointed out. All right, right here's some deer beds, and where I was a few minutes ago was down over there where I was videoing all the deer scat, and this is a good vantage point because the deer can see through this area right here. It's a high point. I'm on a little bit of a ridge and they can see all around, and in the summertime this is all going to be grown in thick with there's lots of thorny weeds and stuff right here, so you won't even be able to see down here because of all the leaves that'll be on this, and there's a draw that comes up right there. So this is a good travel corridor and clearly some deer beds, and you can see where the deer had nibbled on this while it was in its bed. They'll do that. They'll be in their deer beds and they'll nibble on the browse that's right around them when they're in their beds. Right here, this has been all browsed on. You can see the tips nibbled off on this branch right here. The deer can just stand up from its deer bed, nibble on the browse, and look around as it's, you know, getting ready to move out. Here, this has all been browsed on right here. All these little branches right here. So this is clearly a deer bed, and there's deer scat right here, and you can see, you know, right there. So, and this is only probably about 100 yards from those rubs in that tree I just picked out over there. So this is a good area. I'm pretty excited about it. I mean, and the other thing is it's not far from the parking area at all, which is a little bit of a drawback. But the one thing I have in my favor for here is this is such a big, giant forest. You know, tens of thousands of acres, I mean, of public land. I got deer scat everywhere here, and the deer are walking right across this ridge top, which is why I wanted to come investigate it. But I mean, hopefully that this is just so vast that maybe there's not a lot of people that are, you know, checking this particular area out. I don't know, but there's plenty of good deer sign here, and you know, we'll just see. We'll see what happens come fall. We'll see what else I see today. I'm just getting started, and I'm not even into my favorite spot yet that I wanted to look at. Here's a bunch more deer beds right in here, and you can see the sun shining on here. You can see there's snow all over here, and the sun shining right here. There's no snow. There's deer scat right there, probably from there and there, from when it got up from its bed. But right here, it's a spot where the deer can see real far. The wind's, you know, often in your favor right here, but it can see real far in each direction, and it can get the warmth of the sun in the cold months of the year especially. So these deer beds right here, they might not be used as much in the fall, you know, because their patterns are going to change and their use of the thermals will change a little bit. But this is a good area. Another good rub, old rub right there. All right, I'm moving north on the screen. I'm coming up to my next big waypoint that I wanted to see. And here's a good rub. Now the tree diameter isn't that big, however, it's a good distance off the ground, which is what shows a good buck. And then right over here is another one. See if I can zoom in. There's another buck rub right there. Again, a good distance off the ground. So this is definitely a good area. It's cool when you are marking spots, and then when you get there, it's got good deer sign. It just makes it so exciting. Deer scat all over the ground right here. All right, I'm not sure how well it'll show on video. Here's probably a doe bed right here, and there's even fresh tracks in the leaves right here in the doe bed, and some scat right here. And there's a trail that comes right up over the hilltop right here, and we're right on the sunny side, so this is a good area for them to kind of bed down and get warm in the morning. As the sun comes up, you can see the snow's melted right where this deer bed is, but there is snow in the surrounding area. Now, unfortunately, I'm on this ridge top. Here's another deer bed right here. I'm on this ridge top, but it looks like they have an ATV or access trail that's cut in, and I just came across that I didn't know was here. And that's unfortunate. It's so like people can, it could even be from logging, you know, logging operation, but the problem with that is that there could be people on four-wheelers that come flying through here while you're hunting and really mess up your hunt. So here's an area just a little bit farther. I want to show something to you. So here I'm coming across the ridge this way, and there's a little bit of a hilltop right here, and then it goes down. But look, right here there's a deer trail just on the downhill side. So what deer will often do is they will cross hilltops where their body is concealed, but they can see over the top. So a deer can walk across here and see what's over there, but their body is actually concealed by the hilltop right here. And that's one way they, you know, evade hunters even, and you know, that's a way they protect themselves. And so when you're coming on an area like this, this is a good area. I mean, this would be a good area for a tree stand location. Right here, you could even get in a climber right in this tree here, and you'll catch the movement coming across the ridge this way, as well as, I mean, I'm only about 12 yards from that tree right there, which is a little closer than I would prefer, but sometimes you got to take what you can get. And there's some white oaks right here, which I could make a shot to that white oak from this climber tree here if the deer came out lower to feed on the acorns. But again, you have the challenge, if you were set up like this, you could have people come zipping through here, really messing up your hunt. All right, here's another thing I do when I'm scouting. That tree that I just pointed out, I've walked on the other side of that little hilltop, and I do have main deer trails that are coming across over here within shooting range. So right there, let's see, where am I pointing here? Right here's the tree that I was looking at right there, and where I'm standing is about 24 yards. So this is still an archery shot here, even to this next deer trail over. I'm a 30-yard shot right here. So I would be able to maximize my chances by picking a spot like this, because I could get deer movement coming here as well as on the other side of the tree, as well as across the top of the ridge. So these are areas that I definitely like to look at. I have doe tracks in the snow right here, and I'm not far from where all those buck clubs were on the ridge top over there. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark this tree right here as a climber. But here's one thing that I do need to be aware of. I'm on public land, so I can't trim any branches, and there's lots of little branches on this tree that's on an angle right here. So one thing I've done in the past is I've used a little bit of twine to tie the branches to the side, just so I could create a little shooting window. I may have to do that if I was gonna hunt this spot. Okay, here I am on the other side again. That major deer trail comes across. That's a tree I was just looking at. Here is a deer bed right here. There's deer scat on the side of it, and the branches right here have been browsed right around the deer bed. All these little tips of the branches have been browsed from when the deer stands up and starts nibbling on the branches of the saplings and stuff right in the area. So this is definitely a good spot. And here I'm walking off and you can see a deer trail going through the snow. That's one thing that's nice about this time of year we're scouting. Here's deer beds and scat right over there. But this time of year, if you catch it right when the snow is melting off, you can see here's deer tracks going right along. You can see these deer trails pronounced in the snow as the snow is just about to be melted off. This is a good area right here. And I am just amazed at all of the deer scat that I am seeing. I mean, there's just a ton of deer scat all through here. I mean, this is just exciting to me. You're in an area where you're seeing that much sign and deer scat. We'll see what, another thing to be mindful of is we're in the month of March. Here's a bunch more deer scat. But sometimes deer will winter in certain areas and then migrate out of them, in the summer and fall. So this is exciting right now, but hopefully I'll get to come back in the summertime and do a quick scout just to see if I'm still seeing deer sign. Lots of scat, lots of tracks. I mean, this is awesome. I'm having so much fun. Thanks for joining me on this scout. I love sharing this type of stuff. All right, still tons of deer scat everywhere where I'm going. And here I have another nice rub. This is a good rub right here. It's rubbed off real good. You got some time marks up in here. A good vantage point. I can see down the ridge top here and down over here. So it's a little bit thick in here though. So shooting is going to be a challenge. This would be a good area, but when it comes to bow hunting, you can't really get a shot in here. So I'm gonna have to keep looking to see if there's any other connecting areas to this where shots would be available. I mean, I'm seeing enough great sign that I'm not disappointed if I can't find a spot to set up here. Oh wow, another nice rub right over here. I'm just gonna come right over here, and this is a really good rub. But I mean, it's not the end of the world if I can't find a good tree, because to shoot through all these saplings. But this is a really good rub right here. I'm looking forward to showing this to you. It's good height off the ground, which is what I really like to look for. It's a good height off the ground, and there's some good time marks all the way up in here. Here's the main rub area. So I would say that was probably a good buck. And right here is a blowdown. Bucks do like to bed down right around blowdowns. This could have been a bed right here. Right around this blowdown. So I do think I need to find a tree. So some of these trees right here I could get up in probably with a hang on. It's just going to be really difficult shooting. I mean, there's too many little branches and stuff in through here. So I don't know if it would work out. This would be, I would have to, keep looking. I can see there's a deer trail that goes down, and because of the snow, you can see it going through the snow right over there. So they kind of come and go. I could follow this deer trail and see if there's anywhere over there that I could get set up and still get a shot at this main travel corridor. I see mainly red oaks right here, so this isn't probably in the fall a primary feeding area. I'd say, this is definitely a good area to bed down and for them to travel. Let's take a little, I was gonna travel this ridge that way, but let me just take a quick look at, or was it? No, I have to get my map out, see if I was gonna follow this ridge line or this one. But this is definitely a good deer travel corridor, and there's another one that loops across this way. They probably come and step right over that log right there and go right across here, which makes this a really good, right here is good because you've got the deer travel coming across the top and another main trail coming across this way. But there's really no shooting you can do right here. All right, I just followed it over. This is where my next waypoint is. I was just over there, and this is a little high point right here on the ridge, and then it drops down in every direction. And the whole top of this is covered. It's matted down from all the deer beds, and there's deer scat right in here. But this is a great vantage point again for the deer. They can look down in all the directions around. You can see that the snow's gone, so it provided some warmth for them in the wintertime, and there's snow over there. So this is another good bedding area. and I could get a hang on right here in some of these trees right around in here, but then there would be really no shooting here. So again, the challenge here would be actually being able to shoot. I don't have any good shooting lanes, and I can't just come in and clear this out. So there's a nice old buck rub over there. But again, that's one of the challenges. I would probably have to hunt this from the ground and just see if I could slip a shot through. So if it was like bad conditions for a tree stand, I could just set up on the ground, and it's going to be so thick in here that it would be easy to, even without even a ground blind or anything, you could just, you know, get up against a tree and wait for the deer to give you a shot. I mean, that's what I would probably do. There's a tree right there. I would maybe look to set up on the ground right near that tree and try to find some shooting lanes down through. Okay, the habitat is changing. It's getting a lot thicker, which is good for deer, to hold deer throughout the year. But this is going to make it harder being able to get a shot off in the fall. All this is going to be real thick with green in early archery season when I'm planning to come back. And so this will be difficult hunting. So I'm going to probably focus on the edges of it. And the area where I first was looking at when I first got in here is, you know, within several hundred yards of here. And so here's a good deer trail going. I'm right on the top of the ridge here. So they're, you know, being up here, it gives the deer a vantage point. They can see down both sides as they're traveling. A lot of fresh tracks in the leaves. Probably hard to see on the video, but you can see the leaves get pushed up by the deer hoofs when they've recently walked through the woods in that area. Looks like I'm coming up on a clear-cut area. So that's another transition zone right here off to my left. So I'm actually going to go over and look at that. That could create deer travel right along the edge of that transition zone, as I mentioned earlier. Right here's the clear-cutted area. So this is a transition zone right here, and I see a buck rub, a small one, right along the edge. Bucks like to rub right on the edge of transition zones. So this is a young buck, probably like a spike 4-point type of buck right here, rubbed on that. It's really low to the ground. There's one that snapped it off right there. But really good transition zone. Deer can bed down out in this stuff. If you were to get up in a tree nice and high, you could see down in there, and hopefully you might be able to catch some deer move. There's another buck rub right over there. So you've got this, the deer will walk right on this trail, the path of least resistance. That's one thing to also keep in mind. Deer often will go the path of least resistance, and so they will walk. This is a logging road right here from whenever they log this. I see another buck rub. A lot of buck rubs going right down into the thicket right here. Why is that? And I'll tell you. Topographically, I have a high point right here. This is the high, so it comes and goes like this. The high point's here. Right off the edge of that, there's buck rubs going down through. Remember when I showed you earlier how the deer move just off the top of a high point right here? This drops down right there. So deer will prefer to travel a lot of times right on the very cusp of this high point. Sometimes they could come out on the high point if it gives them the best vantage point. If the wind's not in their favor, they could come out on the high point there. But over here, if the wind is in their favor, they will prefer to come out right on the downhill side, either side, whichever side the wind's blowing, and so they can wind anything on the other side. And that high point actually covers their body so that it would be hard for a hunter. We are their primary predators. It would be hard for a hunter to get a shot at. So right here, I'll just show you this. There's a rub right here. And there's some more. There's another one down and through there. Actually, right on the other side of this, there's one right here. And this one's really high off the ground, so that could have been a pretty good buck right there. I mean, that's, you know, a good distance off the ground. I got a buck rub right here. So right at the edge of the transition zone, there's a good rub right there. Bucks come and hang out right here. So this would be a good evening spot. I think bucks especially like to come out in the evening and rub. And early archery, they like to spar. So this right here could be a good early archery spot because bucks could meet up in this open area. It gives them a place to spar. So I have a tree right here. It's too fat around for a climber, but I could put a hang on it, and there's a white oak right next to it. So right here, I'm gonna mark this spot, and that would give me a good vantage point. I could really see down in there. There's another nice rub. So this is a good transition area, a good travel corridor, and I think it could really produce. There's some more white oaks over there. It's providing what I need, and because that's what the deer need. So let me put the camera down and mark this spot. Wow, I know you probably aren't gonna believe me. But after I marked this in my GPS, I took out my Onyx map and I actually marked this exact spot on the Onyx map. However, I was probably in the woods about 15 yards from where I'm standing. I keep getting text messages. Well, come on, guys. That's Andrew from the Map Reading Challenge texting me about hunting, of course. But anyway, the waypoint that I picked is right inside the woods right there, about 15 yards. You can see, the reason why I put it right there is you see the high point, and you can almost see there's a line in the foliage that goes around the high point. Deer will sometimes walk right around the edge of a high point. If they're not, they'll bed down on the high point, but if they're just traveling through, a lot of times they'll walk right around the edge of the high point, which is why I marked this particular spot. And this would be, I might sit this in the evening when we come back. And all these saplings right here the tips are all nibbled off from the deer, coming out right here, right at this spot. All these saplings in through here are just nibbled off from the deer, coming out and browsing. Awesome. All right, I've walked about 90 yards from that last point, and there's another crossover point right here. It's got all the same features as the last one. There's browse. I mean, everything has been browsed right here where the deer come out. All these saplings. There's good buck rubs right on the trail right there. You can see crossover trails coming right across the top right here. There's a high point right here, and right as it drops down is where the buck rubs are. So this is one of the challenges of hunting, though. You could set up on this one and the deer use that one that night, or you set up on that one and the deer use this one 90 yards away. You could always try calling them, but sometimes they just don't come. So that's the challenge of archery hunting, bow hunting, is getting them close enough, and it's just got to all come together for you that night. Out of the two, I kind of like the other one. There's more buck rubs right at the other crossover point than this one. I'm walking up to these buck rubs right here. They're just okay. They're not as big as some of the rubs I saw over there, but could be the same deer. Right here's the rubs. The one nice thing about setting up on a logging road like this is you can shoot 30-40 yards on either side of you if you had to, and if you're comfortable shooting that distance. Okay, I've just walked another 20 yards. There's a bunch of buck rubs right in here where the buck has actually snapped the tree in half. Sometimes when you see that, that means they have good tine length, that they can get the branches or the saplings in their tines, and when they twist their head, it snaps it in half. So that's a good indication right there. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna head back to the car. The spot where I parked, I'm a little nervous. I'm hoping I can even get back out this dirt road that I came in on there's so much snow and ice on it. I had trouble, but I really want to get to this other spot. I've seen a lot of good sign at this spot. I have some good spots, some good stand locations picked out. I'm confident with that, but I really want to spend some time at that other spot and kind of see what's there. Sorry that I'm trying to get my glove back on. See what's there. And I got more ground to cover over at that spot. So I'm gonna walk out a different way than I came in here. I always try to do that to see more of what's in the area. So what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna take this logging road back. I came across this ridge line through the woods. I'm not exactly sure where this logging road goes, so I'm gonna take this and look for major deer trails that come across this logging road on my way back. All right, so I just passed that first spot that came out to the clear cut. The tree that I picked for a hang on is right there. I'm about 45 yards or so from it. There's a scrape right here. There's another little buck rub right there. But this is a good area, and you got to remember too, when it comes to the rut, bucks like to cruise a lot of times on these logging roads because they can cover a lot of long distance doing so easily, and they can catch a lot of those cross trails of the deer that come across, so they can put scrapes at those cross trails. So again, that just makes this an even better looking spot. Now I have a little bit of a ravine right here, so the deer will probably, I mean, it gets pretty steep right here, so it's easier for them to travel around the tops of it here and where it goes across where all those other buck rubs are. So that creates a little bit of a dead zone. I like to look for dead zones because the deer will go around it, and then I look at the topography. Here's another scrape right here. So the deer are coming right up this logging road, and that puts them right over to where that stand is. In the rut. So if I don't get a deer in early archery and I want to come back during the rut, I've just found a good rut spot. So you also got to think, what time of the season am I going to hunt this? They're not going to be running this doing scrapes. Here's a bunch of browse. They've browsed off all these here just from walking through. But what time of year am I going to be hunting it? Early October. They're not going to utilize this like they will in the rut. You know, so, but during the rut, these bucks will cruise this logging road and they'll go right around that dead zone, right over to where that tree stand is. So, I like it. I can see in this that you could see that someone's footprint, someone has been here at some point in the not too distant past, because you can still see their footprint in there. So you got to keep that in mind too. Hunting pressure, this time of year, there shouldn't be too many people out, so somebody's been here, so got to keep that in mind. Here's a water bottle left by that person. I'll pick it up and recycle it. If you guys ever see somebody dropping stuff like this on the ground, say, come on, man. This is not heavy. You can carry this back and put it in a recycle bin, no problem. All right, it took me about an hour and a half to do that spot. I'd say I went in about a mile deep. It was easy access though, and I jogged a lot of the way out on a logging road. So the hard one is the one I'm about to go do, and I hope I don't get stuck getting out of this road. There's a lot of areas of the road that are snow and ice covered, and there's one spot where I'm gonna have to go uphill. It's all ice. When I came in, I just kind of coasted down it, but I'm a little nervous, so this could get ugly. Please, Lord, help me get through. I've got ruts here that I can ride in, but I'm nervous when I get to that spot. I'm not even gonna try recording. I'm gonna put this. Woo, yeah! I made it through the scary part. That's it back there. It was all ice. Thank you, Jesus. Off to the next spot. I think I can make it the rest of the way on this road. Praise the Lord. Well, there's deer tracks, but there's also human tracks. I just got to the second spot, and somebody has just been here very recently. So they're probably shed hunting. They're definitely hunting boots. The access is a little easier here than I anticipated. We'll see. I'll just go check it out and see what happens. So I'm fighting my way through the swamp right now. There's not really much deer sign in the swamp because they didn't use it during the winter time. This could get a lot of deer activity if hunting pressure gets bad in the fall. So I just want to mention to you, if you are out doing an early season scout like this, like in March before the foliage comes in, so you can see what's going on, the deer will use the landscape differently at different times of the year. So come fall, this could heat up this swamp, but obviously it's not much shooting you could do if you wanted to hunt in here, but you want to probably hunt the edges. I'm cutting through it though because I just wanted to see what kind of activity was going on in the actual swamp throughout the wintertime. Getting a workout getting through this swamp, but I'm carrying a straight line through the swamp right to the area I want to go, and I got a high point right here, and there's a deer bed with some deer scat in it right here underneath this tree. There's the scat. Probably just 1-year-old deer, you know, judging by the look of the scat. But that's a good sign. I mean, the deer, I'm seeing more deer activity as I get closer to the area that I'm trying to get to. But it's a fight getting there. As you can see, it's pretty thick in here. But I'm gonna keep going, and I'm looking forward to getting through the swamp and seeing what's on the other side. All right, I'm following the line to where I'm trying to get to. On the other side of the swamp, there's a hill, and I want to check the base of that hill for travel corridors. And the deer is going right to that. Here's the tracks from the deer bed, and here is an old buck rub right here. One thing I like to do when I'm scouting is I like to look for these old buck rubs alongside new buck rubs. And that shows me that bucks come back and rub in those areas year after year. So those are areas that bucks tend to visit. Now that's an old one by itself, so I wouldn't really get excited about that. But if there was a bunch of newer ones with it, then you're on to something. You're on to an area where bucks are going to be very likely to keep visiting year after year. Well, that's funny. I thought I still had about another 400 yards to get to where I dropped my waypoint, so I just stopped to check. And turns out right where that buck rub is where I had my waypoint. I thought it was going to be a little bit more of a transition by this point, but it's still thick swampy. There's nothing really, no way to set up for like a tree stand. You could set up on the ground in here and maybe get a shot here and there, but that's not the kind of setup I'm looking for. So it's disappointing in that I was really excited about that waypoint right where that buck rub was, or you know, rub right behind me there is. But I'm gonna keep taking this over to the hill. I got some waypoints actually at the hill that I also want to look at, and there's more of a excuse me, transition zone over there as far as vegetation transition. So, and you also have a topographic transition with the hill coming down to the swamp. So let's go see what we find. Okay, I just made it through the swamp. That's it behind me right there. And I'm on the base of the hillside. And there's oak trees all through this area, including a good number of white oaks. This is really good. So this would be a good area. It could even be a good morning area. I mean, the deer could be filtering out to go into the swamp, and you can, if the wind's in your favor, you can possibly catch them. But I would probably focus on this for an evening setup. The deer that are going to be bedding down in the swamp in the summertime, when it's hot, it's going to be cooler in the damp swamp, and they'll come out onto the hillside here to feed. And if you can find a concentration of white oaks that are dropping acorns, you could be in some good shape. Okay, I just recorded that last segment and marked this tree right here as a climber waypoint. So this is where the swamp ends and the oaks begin. I see an old rub over there, but as I was standing here and finishing up, here's an old shed. There's some deer scat right there. This is an antler shed. It could even be from last year, but the mice have completely chewed it up. There's almost nothing left of it. But you can see there was probably the G2 right there. And there may have been another point. It could have been, you know, like an 8-point type of a deer, like a 2.5-year-old. And it's funny because I said a prayer asking God's help for this whole scouting trip and for the hunt. I mean, there's a saint, and I forget his name right now, but he said, pray as if it all depends on God and act as if it all depends on you. And I think that's good advice. And so I'm out here trying to put my skills to the test here, doing the best I can. This was the area I really was the most excited to check out. And I did say a prayer like, Lord, if there's an area that is in fact the right area to focus on, let me find a shed right there. And so I found a shed right next to the tree that I just put a waypoint in. Maybe that's my sign. We'll have to test it out come the fall. Right now I'm still more excited about the spot that I checked before here, but right here is a rub. Actually, I see deer scat on the ground. I see my first buck rub, fresher one. There's an older one right over there, but here's some deer scat right here. So it's definitely an area worth checking out. Here's the deer trails are kind of filtering down off the hillside into the swamp right here. This is a nice area. You know, I don't know how much, the deer density is definitely not as high here as at the other spot. Sometimes I like to play the numbers, you know. I'm not the kind of guy that has to get the biggest buck. I'd rather have some deer activity and get an okay buck than maybe get a slim chance at a big buck. I enjoy the whole experience. It doesn't have to be the biggest for me. I enjoy a big buck like the rest of the people, but I don't get hung up on it. All right, I just got to a spot where I had a waypoint that I wanted to check out. Turns out, as I got in here, it's an oak flat that had been select cut logged in recent years, but I can see from where I'm standing that there's another hunter that comes in here. So there's an orange ribbon right over there, and I'm trying to see it now. I just saw one on the other side of me. There's another way to access this from over here, and I could tell there's a hunter that comes in. There's a ribbon over there and a ribbon right up over here that this person is utilizing right there to find his or her spot. I couldn't get the camera out fast enough. I just bumped 2 deer out of this. There's a swamp right below me here. Well, it's not actually a swamp. It's just an area that was clear cut, rather. It's coming in kind of thick. There were deer down in there. There's just 2. I couldn't tell. Might have been 2 doe. Who knows? Got some deer scat at my feet. I actually stopped here to put a waypoint in, and I saw the deer running. Good sign. So the tree I just marked is about 30 yards that way, a good climber tree. Here's a scrape right here. Overhanging limb's been banged up pretty good. There's a buck rub on this bush right here, and even snapped off the one part there. There's been a lot more deer scat right in through here. This ridge line had some deer sign, but not nearly as good as what I was seeing earlier. So now I'm seeing this is an area to focus on. The scrape isn't going to make as big of a difference in the early season, but again, if I come back during the rut, now I have 2 areas. This one right here is a good area because I can see buck activity, but I'm also on a vegetation transition right here. So that clear cutted area is right out in here. I'm up in the timber just off the edge of it, and I can see if deer are cruising the edge of that clear cut or up in the woods here. So these transition zones are really good to focus on. So now I've got a vegetation transition zone and a topographic transition zone. I got a little bit of a ridge top right here, which is what makes this such a good area. And I saw deer. So here's some of the deer scat. There's a little bit there, a little bit there. But as I walk through here, I've been seeing more and more scat. So here's some more scat right here. This is definitely an area that is holding more deer than the area that I walked across, at least this time of year. All this has been browsed, so the deer have nibbled that off. So yeah, this is an area that I'm going to want to focus more on, and I would feel a little more confident. There's a lot of white oaks right here too, which is really important. Here's a good deer trail, cuts right through there. I can see the indentation from it. Again, we're right on the edge of this area that had previously been clear cut, and deer do travel the edges of those transition zones. All right, here's a scrape. Overhanging limbs been banged up real well. I am on a transition zone again. I've been walking the edge of that clear cut where I bumped the deer. I bumped the deer probably about 3/10 of a mile away, and been traveling it. So the clear cut's over here. On the other side, we have basically an oak flat that's been select cut, so it's opened up, but don't be deceived by that. There's a lot of undergrowth here. Come the fall, that's going to be very thick, which can make it challenging for getting a shot at a deer, so you got to take that into consideration. But again, I'm on a transition zone. That's where the bucks like to travel, especially in the rut. And I did just mark this spot specifically. This would be a little bit better of a rut spot than an early season spot. The challenge with early season is that they can go anywhere in this oak flat, and it's going to be hard to predict that. I would just try to aim on using the topography, and so I'd take the food into consideration, but then where can I get the best topographic advantage and set up there? But I can see deer tracks coming right out of the old logging road right here, at least one set. But that also makes it easier for hunters to access if they follow this logging road in. Here's an old buck rub right here. Woohoo! Gotta love it! Gonna keep moving. This is a decent rub. There's a lot of tine marks way up above the main rubbed area. but two logging roads come together right here. Deer will travel these logging roads, but it's also right off the lip of a high point on a ridge. Deer will travel just below that high point, and so this actually creates a travel corridor right here. And I just marked a tree for a climber right here. So this is something you can look at as far as how do you narrow it down. I mean, there's oak trees as far as you can see in here, but sometimes these old logging roads create paths for the deer, but also using the topography. Here's a deer trail that's going off along the edge of the ridge top, and they're traveling that way. So when you can't necessarily say the deer is going to go to that oak tree or that oak tree, that's when you play the topography and even stuff like this, where, like I said before, they sometimes will travel the path of least resistance. So it's a spot I've marked, but I don't know. Who knows if I'll even sit it. I'm only going to be here 2.5 days of hunting. So let's keep going. All right, as soon as I said let's keep going and I turned it off, these are fairly fresh tracks in the snow, and they're coming right down this old logging road here. Right over here is where I marked that spot right there. So the deer traveled within 15 yards of that tree, right down this logging road right here. So you can see their deer using it anyway. All right, I just traveled all the way down the logging road to this blow down here, and you can see right here where the bark is missing. And that's because when the deer are jumping at that spot and their hoofs are kicking the bark off right there. So if you're ever looking for a tree stand location where you want a standing still shot at a deer without having to make any noise, right there. You could get in a climber, that's 15 yards away. The deer is going to walk up to this log, stop, and look before it jumps over it. Especially a log this high, almost always will stop and look. And you don't have to make a sound. You don't have to grunt stop the deer. Boom, perfect broadside shot right there. All right, folks, as you could see, I was particularly excited with the first spot I scouted. And the second spot, it was a little slow start. I did get better deer sign as I went on. Now, going into this actual hunt, I've got some things to weigh out here. I've got a few months to figure it all out. I've got that curious prayer thing where I found the shed. Should I even put any time and effort into that? Or should I focus on the deer sign? I'm thinking about that right now. And what I'll probably do, we're gonna stop back and do one more brief scout, probably in the summertime. I'm probably gonna set up a couple trail cameras and get some information that way. And when we go back in the summer, it's gonna be me, Garrett, and Shane's gonna be with us that time. He'll be done turkey hunting. So you'll wanna check out those follow-up scout videos. Make sure you watch all of our channels. And if you wanna find out what Garrett saw today in this scout video, make sure you follow the link to his channel, which is in the description section, so you can see how his scout went. Did he see the kind of deer sign that I saw, or did he just see other hunting pressure? Go over there to find that out. And lastly, if you enjoyed some of the tips I threw out in this video, I did create a playlist last year, a scouting tips playlist that I filmed here in Iowa. That I will put a link for that in the description section of this video if you want to check that out. And lastly, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about the map reading challenge, I'll put a link for my map reading challenge YouTube channel, which is a separate one for that if you want to check that out. I'd love it if you subscribe to both my channels and follow them both. Until next time, take care, God bless, and those of you who go for those prizes that I talked about, good luck in that. God bless you.